Oh, what a time it is to be a Colts fan, huh? I mean, how often as a fan of your team do you get to dream about the possibilities with a young, freakishly athletic, high-character rookie quarterback, right? And the fact that all of us Colts fans are optimistic and on board and ready to win the damn Super Bowl at this juncture in the offseason shows a lot about the fan base, and I am all about it. I'm going to tell you that right now. So this week, we had a lot of noise about voluntary OTAs, right? A lot of hubbubaloo. Is that a word, right? I'm trying to fit that one in there. And I know OTAs don't really matter, but they did have me thinking about some meaningful positional battles that are going to be important for us as the Colts to figure out as we move through OTAs into training camp and then into preseason, ultimately into the regular season, right? And now, even though I mentioned at the top of the show talking about the rookie quarterback, Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson, obviously we know about that one, right? That's a big one. That's the quarterback position. But I wanted to talk about meaningful ones outside of the quarterback position, right? Now, some of these are going to be player versus player, right? Mano and mano. And some of these will just be groups as a whole. But I figured I would take some time to share some of what I'm going to have my eyes on and what I think you should have your eyes on as well as we roll through the offseason and then into the season. But before we do, for those of you who have been here before, thank you so much for coming back. For those of you who are here for the very first time, welcome. This is the Ride the Bench Colts cast. My name is Justin. I record from my bedroom, right? I mean, how many times can I say it over and over again? Only favor I ask of anyone that comes here and watches these videos is that if you enjoy it, right, if you love the Colts as much as me, just bloop, shoot it a like. It's going to help me get out to as many people as possible. You'd be like a Colts fan helping a Colts fan, right? And then, of course, YouTube's going to take that like and kind of know what to put in front of your face, right? So it's like this beautiful ecosystem of things, positive things going. All right, I'm rambling, right? So you get the point. Like it if you can. Much appreciated. Of course, if you want to follow the journey, I'll be here at 150 years old talking about the Colts on this YouTube channel. You could subscribe. But most importantly, just enjoy the video, baby. It is the off season. We're excited, right? So let's get into it. First positional battle that I'm looking at. And this is the cover, right? So you expected this one. I'm looking at Jelani Woods versus Kylen Granson. Now, it seems like Jelani Woods is a popular candidate amongst the fan base to not only be our starter at tight end, but to have an absolute breakout season. And I understand it. I really do. I mean, up until recently, I basically felt the same. And it's not that I've gone cold on Jelani Woods. I still think he's an immense talent. I mean, right? What a freak he is. 6'7", 260 pounds, explosive athlete, catches just about everything you put in his range. I mean, this is a sexy, sexy option for a young quarterback, and I mean that in more ways than one. Pause. Kidding. That's a little sus. But we had Steichen in his media availability after OTAs giving a little praise to Kylen Granson, right, about not only how good of a route runner he is, which at the tight end position is not exactly something that everybody has, so that by itself is valuable, but also went out to point out how good of a blocker he is. Now, we literally have, 7 tight ends right now fighting for a spot? I feel like that comment about blocking speaks volumes, and it had me thinking, why exactly have we all counted out Kylen Granson from being not only the starter at tight end, but like a primary option in this offense, right? I mean, he's still 25 years of age. This was a 4th-round pick in 2021, so he's been here. He's been working up the depth chart. We do that over here. Think of the Jack Doyles of the world, right? We like to bring these guys up, and he's made a nice play in OTAs. What was that, a 60-yard touchdown? Again, they don't matter, but he made the play, and someone else didn't, right? And seems to be a lock to make the roster, which, again, at the tight end position, other than Jelani Woods is probably the only guy we can say that about. I mean, even Mo Alley Cox is probably kind of on the mend. We don't know, especially with the contract, which I really think is what's hurting him. And then when you think back to last season, how many games did Kylen Granson surprise you with production? I mean, for me, sometimes there'd be days where I'm like, can we get Pittman going? And then all of a sudden we'd be going to Granson. And admittedly, I was a little upset about it. But honestly, Granson was pretty good with those touches. And keep in mind, I know we didn't use the tight end much last year, but would you be surprised if I told you that in 13 games played last year, Kylen Granson ended up 4th on the Colts in receptions? Now, that was 31 receptions. if you needed any reminder about how miserable last season was for us. But again, that's fourth in the team in receptions, and that was nearly 80% of the passes that went his way that he caught. So this was efficiency, right? And again, when I think back to it, just off my brain, I do recall him being open. So to me, it just seems like Colts fans, myself included, have overlooked Kylen Granson just a little bit. And as a young developing quarterback, as we have in Anthony Richardson, you're going to want to be throwing to someone who's either big or is open, right? I mean, trying to fit the ball in to a smaller receiver in a tight window as you're trying to get your feet under you and get a rhythm is not technically ideal. But if you could get a guy that is big like Kylen Granson and open, I mean, this could pay some major dividends. So he's very quickly, for me, becoming a breakout candidate for me this season. I would not be surprised if when the season ends, we see Kylen Granson as a guy who had 55, 60, maybe even 70 catches in this offense. I'm not guaranteeing that by any means, but as we look, and Jelani Woods being the darling that he is, we're excited about him, much in the same way that we were excited about Mo Ali Cox last season. I just wanted to slip the name Kylen Granson in there for all of you as to not forget what he has already done for this offense and kind of not forget the name. I mean, he really might end up being the primary option out of the tight end position on this offense. So we're going to see how that plays out. So now, with that, let's get to the second one. And I want to talk about the corners just a little bit. Now, again, I said at the top of the show, some is player versus player, mano a mano, right? And some is the position groups. Now, here we are at the corners. I'm looking at this group as a whole, right? You look at this entire room. We have Kenny Moore and Isaiah Rodgers as guys that we feel, one, well, really, they've been here. And due to that, we know that they're going to be on the field often, and they probably will. In fact, add Juju Brents to that discussion, being that we drafted him in the second round, right? But from there, we have a collection of dudes who we don't really know who's going to rise, right? I mean, we got the Tony Browns of the world, who I believe was starting in OTAs. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Darius Rush, Dallas Flowers, Kelvin Tolliver, right? We don't know which of these guys are going to rise up. And I know right now none of them technically seem off of name alone to be too appealing as options to get a good chunk of time this year. But the reality is someone's going to have to do it, right? And there's been lots of talk, or at least some talk, about how good Darius Rush has looked early on. So let's see how that shakes out. Now, Isaiah Rodgers, as much as we love him, and trust me, I love Isaiah Rodgers, I was surprised it took so long for him to get playing time last year. Personally, I just feel maybe he's not really built in that Gus Bradley mold. Maybe it took Gus Bradley a second to be like, I'm going to commit to this, right? Gus Bradley likes these bigger guys. Isaiah Rodgers, I think, is all of, 5'11", 190 pounds. I may be wrong about that. It's off the top of my head, but this is a third-year guy in Isaiah Rodgers who's a sixth-round pick, so it goes to show that draft capital isn't everything, and a guy that was once not a name is now a primary piece of this defense. So any of these guys has a shot, and with a defense that was inconsistent last year, in pass coverage at times, and now we've lost Stephon Gilmore, this actually may be the most important of the positional battles, right? This is really going to be something to watch to see kind of where these guys fall into place, right? Ideally, none of them are one of our top 2 or 3 corners. But listen, NFL, 3 receivers on the field, passing all the time, injuries, right? Corners, you can't have too many. So let's see how many of these guys end up being dudes that could contribute. I'm keeping my eye on the corner room. Now let's get to the third one, and I believe the final one. I say I believe the final one because I may just start rambling, but you'll know by the video title how many I actually spoke about. So I want to talk about Josh Downs versus Isaiah McKenzie, right? Now, Josh Downs, another one. The rookies are always darlings, right? Especially at this juncture. And I, for one, am as big of a fan of Josh Downs as there is. I've said this on this channel multiple times, but at this juncture, I assume everyone listening is listening for the first time, right? I mean, I'm kind of a small channel. So if you're here now, you're here before it's cool, but that's neither here nor there. One day it will be cool, and you could say that you were here first. But Josh Downs is a guy that if we hadn't traded back from the 35th pick in the second round, I would not have blinked if we drafted Josh Downs right there. In fact, that was literally who I wanted there. So to get him at the 79th pick is incredible. And then take into account that Reggie Wayne thinks he's the best receiver in the draft as well. Now he gets to work with him, coach him up, all this great stuff, right? So this is the guy that a lot of us assume and want to rise up in the slot. But I want to give Isaiah McKenzie his due because I think we're writing him off, much like the Kylen Granson situation at tight end. A lot of people don't have great things to say about Isaiah McKenzie. Now, he wasn't consistent all the time last year for the Bills, but at the end of the day, this was a guy that was on the field for them. And this was a guy that produced on a number of occasions. And do keep in mind that before we drafted Downs, we lost Paris Campbell. Isaiah McKenzie was the guy that we signed to ease the load, right? He's a veteran. He's been around. And this is a guy that I think can produce for us. Now, Downs is already dealing with an injury. And even if it's not serious, like, maybe he'll be back like soon, for a rookie, those reps really matter, particularly at this juncture when you're talking about starting week 1, right? So those reps that we see out of Josh Downs and Isaiah McKenzie, this is going to be something to monitor. But I do have a feeling that this is going to be much more of a rotation, particularly early on. Maybe as the season progresses, we'll see. But I think this is going to be much more of a rotation than people expect it to be. So I think because I have a few more episodes to record, and you'll see them coming whenever they come, right? So today's Saturday. I'm going to record 2 more, probably out tomorrow, so you'll see them there. I'm going to stop this episode right here. A little bit of a short one, but again, we have a couple more coming, so just stay tuned, right? Turn on the notifications, whatever it is, and you'll catch everything I have to say this Memorial Day weekend, right? So with that, you've made it to the end of the episode. Appreciate you being here. If you made it this far, you couldn't have hated it that much, so that's where you shoot the like, right? Because if you don't dislike it, you'll like it. It's the polar opposite. And then again, if you'd subscribe, I'd be very grateful. But, realistically, I'll be here for a very long time. So if you don't subscribe now, I'm sure I will get you down the line. So that's it. Until next time, my name is Justin, and this right here is, voice crack. Damn, dude, I'm 26. My voice is still cracking. Is that a problem? This is the Ride in the Bench Colts cast. Go Colts.